Welcome everybody. Lesson 230 in the workbook says, now I will seek and find the peace of God. Okay, now I will seek and find the peace of God. I will seek it and I will find it. So what does this mean? It means that when we seek, we will find. We will find what we're seeking. Why? It's our will, isn't it? It's our will that we find what we're seeking in life. If we go seeking torment, we'll find torment. At the same time, if we go seeking peace, we will find peace. If we go seeking disappointment, lo and behold, we're disappointed. If we go seeking love, then that's what we'll find. It's an exercise of will. Whose will? Well, our will, yeah. And as we've seen, our will and God's will are one. Not two. They're not different. They're not different. So this is a statement of clear determination and truth. Now I will seek and find the peace of God. Where will I seek it? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Because we run around in the world thinking that we have to seek these deep level answers outside of ourselves, don't we? We may seek them in a hot, sexy, intimate relationship. Truly. A hot, sexy fling is the guise for a lot of deep level thinking and some soul searching and some serious angst on our part as human beings, right? In general. Yeah, that's the guise for a lot of looking for answers where they cannot be found outside of ourselves. What we're doing is we're seeking inside. This is the place where we look for these answers, where we find the peace of God, because it's not to be found externally. It's not to be found in a Rolex watch. And they might be pretty or something, right? They're not to be found in really expensive cars or clothes. And as we just talked about, they're not to be found in a hot, sexy, romantic partner that makes you look good for the weekend and feel good for the weekend. That's not where we find the peace of God. Now, don't get me wrong, we might find plenty of short-term satisfaction therein, but it's not lasting, is it? The peace of God is everlasting. It's all that is. So when we look for the peace of God inside ourselves, we're simply allowing things to be as they are. This is true of all of spirituality. Every bit of spiritual practice is about allowing things to be as they are and getting out of our own way. One of the things that any teacher means by getting out of our own way is cutting the interference, right? Setting aside all of the static, all of the distractions that keep us from experiencing the truth of who we really are. We simply let the clutter go, and truth shines in and of itself. It's all that is. God is. It's never gone anywhere. There's no place for it to go. It simply is. And spiritual practice, including the practice of today's exercise in the workbook, is about allowing that, simply allowing it to be. I will seek and find the peace of God. So how will I do this? Well, contemplate today's idea. Ask for help. Ask your guide, ask your guides for help. If you're not sure who your guide or guides are, then continue to explore, continue to seek. You will find. Why? It's your will and God's will. Same. Thy will be done. Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. How else would it be? Yeah. How else would it be? The peace of God is not only available to us 24/7, it is what we are. It's who we are. Again, all of spiritual practice is about allowing ourselves to experience this, to simply let it be as it is, not to judge what comes up, not to cling on to what comes up the way we want to cling to things in the world. It's just allowing things to be as they are. And what happens when we do that is all of the distractions, all of the chatter, all of the noise just sort of dissipates, doesn't it? If you've ever had this experience during yoga or meditation, then you'll know what we're referring to here is that all of the noise just kind of quiets, doesn't it? It just subsides in and of itself when you show up and allow truth to simply be. And you could ask for help in that. And it's entirely appropriate to ask for assistance, to ask for help and guidance in how you should practice these daily workbook lessons. Because, as you know, starting out in the workbook, Jesus gives very specific instructions saying, scan the room, for example. This shirt does not mean anything. This ring does not mean anything, even though it kind of does. No, it does not. This ring does not mean anything. This painting does not mean anything, right? There are specific instructions earlier on in the workbook, but now that we're more than halfway into it, we're into part 2 of the workbook, it's less about words and specific instruction and more about experience, which is where we're all headed. We're all headed there because that is what spirituality is all about. All of it. It's about experience. And when you think about it, right, it makes sense, doesn't it? What else would it be but experience, allowing the truth of what is to simply be without all of our wild interference. All right. So as we wrap up here, I want to give a special shout out to all of you who are tuning in from Enlightened World Network. This show that began as a live stream earlier this year on Enlightened World Network is called A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. And you can still find it on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel right there. And it's really a pleasure to have you all here. And thank you to those of you who have joined me from my Linktree account, from YouTube, from Instagram, wherever you're joining me from. If you have specific questions, I'm here to help. Truly, I'm here to help. This is one of the things that I love about showing up and teaching is being able to point the way, right? Just as I've had the way pointed to me, and I still do. You know, the function of a teacher is to point, because we can't have the experiences for you, right? None of my teachers could have my experiences for me. I had to sit down and go through all of my own drama myself, right? And that's true of each and every one of us. So along the way, it's really helpful to have assistance. Yeah, it's really helpful to have a safe space where we can explore. It's really helpful to have a safe person whom we can trust and bring up really deep level questions. Because let's face it, a lot of the things that we're talking about here are not the kind of things that you talk about in line at the grocery store with the stranger behind you. They're not what you talk about when you get into an Uber or a Lyft and you start talking to the driver, right? You kind of talk, people talk about, hey, how's your day going? A nice day out, isn't it? Wow, can you believe this weather? Or people talk about sports or work or something else, right? There are other conversation pieces. This is deep level stuff. It's deep level stuff. So it's very helpful to have a teacher. And I am available for all of those questions. Feel welcome to simply reach out to me. All right. So whatever your practice looks like, I want to invite you to lean into it. If you are doing this often every day, keep doing it. If you feel like you're not doing it often enough, just do it for a couple of seconds, right? Or do it when you remember to do it. First time I went through the workbook, guys, there were multiple days, I would say dozens, maybe 40 or 50, honestly, days out of 365 where I would do a practice session or work on or contemplate the day's idea at the start of the day over coffee. And then I would forget about it the whole rest of the day, right? Despite specific instruction in the workbook to the contrary. And what I'm here to say is it doesn't make any difference. Doesn't matter. Do it when you remember to do it. It's just like a living, breathing, waking meditation. This is all spiritual practice is. It can be easily compared to a meditation session because it is that. You've got an object of meditation. Let's say it's the breath. It could be a mantra or sound or something that you visualize, right? You could be listening to a guided meditation with a teacher or an instructor. Whatever it is, there is an object of meditation. And then there's our wild, crazy thoughts, the monkey mind that runs off and wants to talk about tomorrow's lunch and a TikTok video that you saw yesterday at 3:17 p.m. that was highly memorable, obviously, because you're recalling it right now during meditation. Yeah, and we've got this mind that just races and races and races. And the general instruction is when you notice, right, when you notice that you're carried away, bring your attention back to the object of meditation. If it's the breath, bring your attention back to the breath. If it is a living, breathing, waking meditation, and it's the daily workbook lesson, then when you notice you're caught up and carried away, bring your attention back to the day's idea. Take a moment, a couple of breaths to practice. And having taken a couple of breaths and practiced, I would invite you to take another breath and practice one at a time. It's just like that. All right, guys. Thanks again for joining me. We'll see you soon.